one of the big challenges for a GM is how do you build your roster to win right now, right? To win this season because you have to, but also build it for the long term where you have, whether it's through the draft, and that's the balance between free agents and draft. How do you approach that as a GM? Building for long term, but making sure you can also win this coming season.
Right, so I'll tell you a good story. 2019 was my first year as GM. And we weren't, at that point, we weren't in a great salary cap position. So my first move was trading Joe Flacco. But then we had 4 players on our defense that we weren't going to bring back. It was Eric Weddle, Terrell Suggs, C.J. Mosley, Zadarius Smith. Those are 4 really, really good players. I think between the 4 of those guys, probably been to over 20 Pro Bowls, okay? Outstanding players. We let all 4 of those guys go in a 1-week span. And it was brutal. It was my first month on the job. Fans, I mean, you guys know what social media is, and it was a new experience for me. I was getting death threats. What is he doing? This guy comes in, he just gutted our defense. We let all these players go. And I'll be honest, I probably should have done nothing. And I panicked. I was very impatient, and I panicked, and I went and I signed Earl Thomas. And Earl Thomas was a great football player, okay? Probably a Hall of Famer someday, potentially. But I didn't really vet Earl Thomas enough. I didn't call people about Earl Thomas. I knew the player, I'd seen the tape, but I didn't do my homework on him. And what I found early on after signing Earl Thomas, and it was great signing Earl Thomas, everybody said I was a genius. So I went from being the village idiot to being a genius in 24 hours, which is how things work. But what I found was he didn't really fit our culture. He didn't fit us. And had I made some phone calls, had I checked with some people, had I called friends of mine who knew Earl, he was a good player, but he didn't fit the Ravens the way that we're wired and what we're all about. And I did it because I panicked and because I was impatient. And that was a mistake. He made the Pro Bowl that year, and we cut him the next year. And it wasn't, we didn't cut him because of football stuff. And that's just me being honest. And I love Earl. I always root for Earl Thomas. I hope he's doing well. But he just didn't really fit the Ravens' way, and it didn't work out. And it was a costly mistake. And I wasn't patient. So I've learned since then, okay? I've learned to take a breath. I've learned to not make a decision till the next day. You might feel a certain way, right? You think you're going to do something. Sometimes, honestly, it's just better to just go home, have a beer, go to sleep, see how you feel the next day. You may feel the same way. And if you do, that's great. But you may say, you know what? I don't feel the same way as I felt yesterday. And then I would say the same thing. Wait another day, if it's not pressing. Because one thing I learned from Ozzie Newsome, who's a Hall of Fame player and a Hall of Fame executive, is don't make a decision until you have to make a decision. Don't rush into things. Because sometimes you get forced into decisions that you don't really have to make, and you can make big mistakes. With the roster, what I love about the draft, the process of building through the draft, is we spend 9 months getting ready for the draft. We start basically in August, July and August, and the draft is in April. It's a full process, very, very thorough. We do the same things we've been doing for the last 25 years. I love that. Free agency, in my opinion, is dangerous because it's very reactionary. You might lose a player, oh, we got to replace him. And then you might look at a player that you haven't really vetted, that you haven't really talked about. I think that's very dangerous. Plus, the market dictates that you pay exorbitant prices for these players. The market with free agency is an irrational market. There's no reason for the prices that some of these players command. That's a dangerous thing. With the draft, every single salary is a fixed salary. You know exactly what that player is going to cost over a 4-year period. So for me, just thinking about like managing risk, the draft is the way to go. We've always been a draft-centric team. The idea that we would trade away draft picks every single year, fans love it because they want these sexy names. They want these big-time players. to me, that's a very volatile way of building your franchise with long-term implications that are going to be harmful generally. So for us, we're always going to be a draft-centric team.
Yeah.